There are 187 countries that committed to the 2015 Paris Climate Agreement to reduce global temperatures by 2 degrees by the year 2020. So what impact will the withdrawal of the US, which was an original proponent of the agreement under President Barack Obama, mean? In studio to help us put this question into context is environmentalist Dr. Isaac Kalua. We have Karen Mwalo from the Greening Kenya Initiative, as well as Charles Ngunjiri, the Chief Cooperative Communications Officer at the Kenya Forest Service. Thank you very much, gentlemen and lady, for coming in.
Thank you for having us.
Big announcement made by Donald Trump. What does this mean? I'll start with you, Dr.
I think the first thing that we need to look at is what is all this in relation to our country,
Yes.
and also globally. Many countries talk about the US, talk about the European countries. They have gone through a development path that has taken them to where they are today. And this has not been good for the environment, the atmosphere, and so much that has caused so much bad effects to the environment. And therefore, some of the suffering that we are having today is out of their path into development. And therefore, they committed out of that we are now going to fund the developing countries so that they can be able to reach the position that we all would want to be at in terms of development. And therefore, backtracking this means throwing off a situation that on the face of what should not have been done. You see, administrations do have a time frame, just like our president said the other day.
Yeah.
But governments are forever. Therefore, it's reneging from what they should have done. It's not a good thing. But again, you have to respect the sovereignty of America and the America First process. The only thing is that it needs, or it may have required that very professional advice, which, again, it depends from who is briefing you and for what purpose. Politically, they have won. Internationally, maybe it's a big challenge.
Because even seeing from the kind of reactions we've gotten from all the other world leaders,
including his own supporters and their own supporters who are looking forward to companies like Exxon and so many others that were looking forward to participate. You see, you cannot participate. And the good thing also, he leaves a window that we pull out and we will come back to renegotiate. That's a good thing, give it there. But the only thing is that it would have been better to negotiate from inside, not from outside. And therefore, that international good relationship that should have been experienced, that is going to lack.
Okay.
Yeah.
Karen, locally, Kenyans might be wondering, so what does this have to do with us? And like he says, all the other countries that signed have a stake in this climate change movement. So locally, some of the initiatives that have been put in place, how are we fighting this?
Well, climate change is not just a local problem, it's a global problem. And whatever the other countries choose to do affects everybody in the country. And locally, what we have tried to do is, as media and PR practitioners, we've come up with an initiative called Greening Kenya, where we are trying to conserve the environment, but also, more importantly, create a culture of sustainable tree planting that will have repercussions not just now, but even for future generations. And our initiative will hope to plant 100,000 trees between next year's World Environment Day, which is June 5th. So between now and the 2018, we hope to plant about 100,000 trees in Kenya. And this is both in public spaces and private spaces. And we've partnered actually with the Kenya Forest Service, who have actually contributed 2,000 seedlings for our cause. We launch the initiative tomorrow at the Starehe Boys Center from 8:30 a.m. And we are going to plant, it will be the first place we plant trees. And as we go, we are planning to collaborate with governments, counties, and even schools, police stations, where we can plant anywhere that there's space. We want to plant trees and hopefully see the effects of those in a few years to come.
Yeah. Charles?
Yes, I think the saddest thing about climate change is that it is the developed countries that do the most pollution, but it's the local and the poorest people who suffer the effects. As such, the initial idea for the Paris Agreement is that the highest offenders would more or less put in place steps to mitigate effects especially on the poorest. So if that is not put in place clearly, then it puts into great jeopardy for the people who are poor. Unfortunately, if we look at natural disasters, mostly they are 90% climate related or advanced weather related. So and the people who are least prepared for this, again, is the poor people. So as a service, we are looking at ways of preparing across the board communities to be able to respond to the effects of climate change. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Kalua, the U.S. pulling out, we have all agreed that it is a big deal and it's going to affect so many people. But what would be the immediate impact of this decision made by the U.S., keeping in mind that they are the second largest carbon emitters as a country?
One of the risks that we stand is the fact that other countries may start rethinking of their position. But the good thing is that also there's a report that has just come through that all the countries that were committed to this are not going to change from that position. The other thing is that you lose the trust of the people. But again, you also give an opportunity for countries like China to now fill up a gap, because what America is saying is that there is an opportunity of looking at progress in terms of technology, and therefore adding new technology, new ideas of how you can do that. The other risk, you see, Trump says, and his administration, that there will be more jobs that will be created. This, I think we need to relook at it, and maybe it needs to be analyzed further. But again, as I said, it depends on who briefed him, based on what. Politically, it's a win. But again, now, in terms of the jobs that are supposed to be created, it's like today comparing the technology of Telecom Kenya that used to be, the kind of poles and cables that we used to use before, and talking about M-Pesa today, the platform, and how many people are being employed out of this kind of a process, talking about Uber and how many people are employed vis-a-vis the old technology. And therefore, there may be lesser people in coal production than the people who have been employed in the renewable energy sector. So there is that kind of, and again, you also look at a situation where America will also be looked at maybe as one, because the treatment should be just like a country that is dealing with terrorism and others that are not supporting. But I believe it is not that bad as yet, because there is that room for renegotiation. There is the international laws that deal with this kind of treaties and agreements internationally. So I believe it may not just be one-off and then it is off. Therefore, there is going to be a lot of effects in terms of jobs. Technology is what they're saying they will replace it with. It also opens up America to unfair competition in one way, in my opinion, because the knowledge about technology is not only based or it doesn't start and end with America. One technology will be bypassed by another in a different country, and therefore creating an opportunity for other countries higher than that of America. And again, it's something that goes beyond just what we are seeing. This country and Africa, the amount of money that we are using out of climate change related issues, extreme drought, extreme floods. The monies that we are using to construct the roads, the monies that we are using in the health sector, the monies and the economy that we are disposing of on matters of environment and even forest resources is enormous. We are just dealing and coming out of a food situation of this country. These are the issues that we must consider. Water levels, sea levels. It is estimated, and clearly, and this is a scientific process, there are things you can't argue about. Science. It is so clear on what is expected. By 2030, sea levels will be up, as estimated, by 2 meters, and it keeps going higher. We only have one world. The people are increasing. The resources, the capital, we must use it efficiently so that we leave something for future generations.
All right. I must say something to agree, especially on the impact of the Trump withdrawal from the Paris Accord. At the core of it is $3 billion that the Obama administration had pledged to the accord to help now the lesser countries to fight their carbon emissions and to try and put in place ways of saving energy and trying to reduce the emissions. Now, with the withdrawal from Trump from this accord, that is at stake, right? Yes, there is a report that came in and said the countries will not pull out the accord, but they will actually have challenges. How are they going to continue fighting the work they're supposed to do? Like you said, there's drought, extreme drought on one side, food shortages. And I think even as Green in Kenya initiative, that's what we're trying to do our part. If everybody plays a small part, we'll be able to have now a collective win. If we plant 100,000 trees, even in places, let's say even like Mandera, and I think that's why we've partnered with the Kenya Forest Service so that they can also advise us. In Mandera, what kind of trees can we plant there that will survive? Because it also makes it, it won't work if we go and plant our own trees in Mandera and there's no aftercare. There's no maintenance. We plant, tomorrow they're dead. So I think working the Kenya Forest Service for us to achieve our goal of 100,000 trees, we'll be able, and we actually call not on people. Don't wait for Green in Kenya initiative. Call us. Say we want to be part of the initiative, we want to plant in our own county. We don't have to come there. We'll actually give you the provision for the seedlings and advice from the Kenya Forest Service. And maybe I think Gunjiri can say more about that.
Yeah, maybe just before I go into that, there's a gap. Of course, there are financial commitments, and the people who are left with the hole. So if we are saying, do they go back and dig deeper into their pockets, that would be another discussion. But coming back locally, we are looking at extreme pressure on our forest resources, because if it becomes dry and the drought persists, so the only place that communities can turn to, they're looking at where there is firewood, where there is resources for water, and you can see there is increased conflict for natural resources. So interventions need to be put in place, and as such, partnerships become very important. And as a service, we are looking at all manner of partnerships. There is no special big or small partnerships. We are working with embassies who have incorporated tree growing and adapting forests as part of their national days or part of environmental responsibility. We're also looking and working with groups who are now coming on board and saying, what can we do? And it's such that we joined with the Green in Kenya initiative, which I'm also a part of as a communication professional. And we are saying, let's start small and let us grow. We may actually meet and surpass our objective, but we are saying with our own capacity, with our own networks, we can put in place 100,000 seedlings.
But how really are Kenyans aware on how they're supposed to deal with that issue? Is, yes, the interventions you've mentioned are very important,
yes.
But even as we go around planting trees, are we really making Kenyans aware why this is important to them?
Thank you. I think that Kenyans are greatly aware. The only thing is that they're not aware through the traditional channels of communication as TV and all that. But on the ground, we are very active, essentially up to the chief level. We have offices, we have 250 offices countrywide. For every forest station, we have forest officers in every division, if you look at the traditional administrative structures. But now we are looking at sub-county levels. So in terms of penetrating information, we have done a lot of that. But as you say, we still need to scale up because not enough has been put in place. And there are many opportunities, especially through partnerships, to create as much awareness as possible. Yes.
Dr. They've both talked about funding, which is a very important aspect. The $3 billion commitment from the U.S. seemingly won't go to the developed country, to the underdeveloped countries or the third world countries. So when we talk about the effects, let's come back home, closer home to Africa. What does this mean for these third world countries, like Kenya included?
I think, and first of all, let me congratulate my team members in the environmental sector for the good job that they're doing on the Green in Kenya initiative. This is an initiative that needs maximum support from Kenyans, and it adds value to what we do also as Green Africa Foundation, because what happens in Kenya has far-reaching effects to other countries. what is happening in Philadelphia today is directly affecting our position here in Kenya. One thing that we are failing to do, and we need actually to put a lot of effort, is that creation of awareness. People will not buy us for what we are doing, greening Kenya, greening Africa, or the efforts that I am doing in Kenya Water Towers Agency or Kenya Forest Service. People buy why we are doing this. And we need to be able to call upon, and for the first time, I think in a very profound way, I'm happy to see that the media practitioners and PR agencies are working towards this. And this should be an effort that everybody in the media sector,
Definitely.
I always get tempted to call for a session that has got no camera, that has got no TV, that has got no nothing, just to make the media practitioners and these people to understand fully, so that when they deal with these things, they are coming from the heart. And this is one thing, so that we tell Kenyans why we are doing this. When you see that you don't have money, when the economy is not growing, it's because your money is going to build roads that were spoiled by the floods just the other day. That electricity, because there was too much water, trees fell on this electricity, money is going to that. Employment, and so many things, so that people can understand that actually climate change is far beyond environmental issues, and it's about a livelihood issue. And therefore, Kenya as a country, before I respond to your question, we are far ahead, and that is why we now have the Climate Change Act. I really can't wait for His Excellency, the President, to operationalize it, because now the people who are supposed to be working in this Climate Change Act and the process have already been appointed by the parliament, and now they are supposed to be operational. And you know who the chairman of this process is in Kenya, and we are setting a good precedence world over. It is His Excellency, the President. That's how important these issues are. So small efforts, big efforts do matter quite a lot.
Now back to my question.
You ask a very valid issue. What action should we be able to take locally? Funding. Africa needs a lot of money. You see, first of all, we are going to lose the money from the US, which is X amount of money per year. But that means that we need now to, first of all, within the America, there are companies that are ready to still pursue this process. So again, it is not all lost. Once we operationalize our act, then open up the funding process for what is expected, it opens up ourselves to all this. Other countries have said they are not going to backtrack. So there's still money. But how organized are we to be able to start accessing these monies? Institutions and individuals, when we talk about 100,000 trees to be planted, how many people are ready to plant their own trees? And by the way, I'll give you an additional 2,000 trees between ourselves and Kenya Water Towers Agency to be able to support what you are doing, because it's a good process that might be supported. So there's need for funding. There is need for, and it's just accessing the funds that is now required, because it is there. And also setting up a certain percentage of the government budget, say up to 1%, to be able to directly go to mitigation issues, so that funding of this, Kenya Forest Service should not be struggling for money to deal with this kind of issues.
And like he says, they're pressed.
Yeah.
They're really pressed.
Kenya Water Towers should not be struggling with money. NEMA should not be struggling to get funding. Other institutions that are doing such important human issues should not be struggling with funds. But this process, even though America is withdrawing, and I still want to take Trump on the better side, that he said that he is withdrawing, but renegotiating the process, because what they are looking at is the immediate funds. And it's actually unfortunate. Borders on ungodliness of the institution of APA. I don't know. Maybe I put a proviso that I need to learn more information about what informed him. But APA is this institution that should be able to to protect the environment globally in America and other places.
Right.
And yet they are the ones who are pushing for this. There must be some information, again, that has directed them to this, that may not make scientific sense, but makes all political sense. And therefore, you just leave it to them because of their sovereignty that they are entitled to. And therefore, I think I respond as such. Yes.
All right. Parting shot.
Like we said, I think everybody has to play their part. Any small effort that anybody puts in leads towards a much bigger win for all of it, for everybody. So I'm just appealing to Kenyans tomorrow, come and join us. Come, let's plant trees and help us reach our goal. And I think if you all join hands, we might actually surpass our goal. I'd like to thank Daktari here for his generous offer of 2,000 seedlings. And actually, the Kenya Forest Service has also provided 2,000 seedlings to plant. And they've been giving us a lot of technical advice. Like I said, you must know what you're planting, where you're planting. And hopefully, because we've been beneficiaries of climate change, I think last year was the highest recorded year in history. And the temperatures, we feel them here. I mean, many times you're like, hey, it's too hot, what's happening? So we also need to take matters into our own hands and hopefully now make sure that going forward, we can actually leave a good generation and a good legacy. So join the initiative, Green in Kenya, on social media, Instagram and Twitter, and we look forward to having you there tomorrow. All
right, Charles, I'll have you have the last word.
Thank you. If you look at our constitution, we have a commitment to make 10% tree cover for Kenya. We are now at 7.4%, and the gap between 7.2 and 7.4%, and the gap needs to be filled. Our gazetted areas for forest is only 2%. So we are looking at partnerships to come and fill in the gap. We have international commitments that allow us to do 5.1 million seedlings for actually 5.1 million hectares by the year 2030. So the gap is big, and we can only call for real partnerships that can come on board and be practical so that we can be able to achieve these targets.
All right, quite a conversation. Thank you very much for coming in. Dr. Isaac Kalua is an environmentalist. Karen Mwalo is from the Greening Kenya Initiative, as well as Charles Ngunjiri from the Kenya Forest Services. Thank you very